How did an obscure eclectic band with almost no musical training create songs that defined a generation? This is the untold truth of the Psychedelic Furs. The Psychedelic Furs were one of the many bands that were born during the UK's post-punk scene in the late 70s and early 80s. REM guitarist Peter Buck once wrote in the Record magazine, "As Brian Eno has pointed out, every single one of the 20,000 people who bought the Velvet Underground's first album eventually formed a band. Although the Psychedelic Furs are known for being one of the bands who were influenced by the Velvet Underground, it isn't where the majority of their early inspiration came from. In fact, as bassist Tim Butler told Inc. 19, he believes the Furs are, if anything, a combination of Roxy Music and the Sex Pistols. He said, "That's one of the reasons why we started in the first place. The Sex Pistols brought an energy back to music.
I try so hard to be nice."
It was the aggression and energy of the Sex Pistols that inspired Tim and his brother Richard to form their own band. While speaking to NPR in 2020, Richard elaborated further on the now legendary 1976 Pistols concert, revealing that it was new for them to see such intense anger on stage. The anger gave Richard confidence, too. He said that he never considered himself a musician until punk music paved the way, and so the Psychedelic Furs were formed. The band began performing in Surrey, England in the living room of the Butler family home until they were kicked out for being too loud. According to Tim, the lads were already playing London shows, eventually drawing around 1,000 fans before even getting signed. The early work of the Psychedelic Furs, particularly their eponymous 1980 debut album, was a major part of the post-punk movement. Their inclusion of the saxophone was a unique choice for the genre, and while some thought it strange, it seemed to work. So how did the band come up with their distinctive sound? Well, according to Tim Butler, it happened entirely by accident. In 2016, Tim spoke to the Memphis Flyer and revealed that during one jam session, the Furs guitarist Roger Morris brought along his friend Duncan Kilburn. Kilburn was a saxophone player, and after some time jamming with the band, they all decided they simply liked having a saxophone in the mix. As Tim revealed, "We didn't purposely include a saxophonist for effect, it just sounded good." It turned out that along with the saxophone, Kilburn played the keyboard, which was much more prominently featured on the group's second album, Talk Talk Talk. The inclusion of Kilburn's keyboard was also a happy accident. According to Tim, Kilburn ended up in a fight at the club and broke his jaw during the time they were recording the album. Since playing the saxophone was out of the question, Tim said he just brought a keyboard into the studio and started playing parts. Eventually, they expanded the use of the keyboard, but both instruments, which seemed to become integral to the Furs' unique sound, were developed by happenstance.
We probably wouldn't have been a band if punk rock hadn't have come along and swept everything out the way.
The Psychedelic Furs have never shied away from the fact that squabbles within their band were an occurrence during recording. In 1984, the same year the Furs released their fourth album, Mirror Moves, guitarist John Ashton spoke frankly with the Morning Call. He revealed that he'd sometimes argue with Richard Butler over the band's overall sound, and that Tim Butler would usually side with his brother. He explained that he felt that there was one mind between the two of them that he had to confront whenever there was a dispute. The press seemed to accept that part of the Furs' essence included internal arguments. In 2010, the Quietus interviewed the Butler brothers and dubbed the group famously a quite quarrelsome entity. Tim was quick to defend his band, noting that the spats weren't more than 5 or 10 minutes. He believed it contributed to their sound, not disrupted it. He said, "If you just had an argument with someone when you came to record in the studio, you have something to prove. You play with passion, you play harder." Tim echoed a similar sentiment during a chat with Puck magazine, pointing out that he and Richard are nothing like the infamously argumentative Gallagher brothers of Oasis. However, he did once throw his brother through the window of a shoe shop in the band's formative years, so very punk.
Well, I don't know who these people are half the time.
In 1986, the Psychedelic Furs changed the trajectory of their careers. According to the Quietus, Molly Ringwald of the Breakfast Club fame adored the Furs song Pretty in Pink. It seems she went to her frequent collaborator, director John Hughes, and asked him to write a film around the song.
I had to do it because, he wrote it, John wrote the script for me.
Tim told NME that Hughes actually wanted to re-record the Furs track with another band because he thought the guitars weren't tuned to each other. The Furs responded by saying, "F*** to that." It was then that the Psychedelic Furs set off to re-record the title song themselves. After the movie Pretty in Pink was released, it immediately became a Hughes classic, and naturally the band gained a much broader audience than just post-punk fans. Tim reflected that the attention gave the impression that they had sold out and drove away older fans. He said, "The first few rows would be screaming girls in pink t-shirts." The musicians felt depressed over their new fan base. It didn't help matters that the iconic director had also completely misinterpreted the band's song. Richard told the Quietus, "The idea of the song was Pretty in Pink as a metaphor for being naked. The song to me was actually about a girl who sleeps around a lot and thinks that she's wanted and in demand." According to Richard, Hughes understood the track completely literally. The Psychedelic Furs have always told big stories through simple lyrics. In fact, lead singer Richard Butler was well known for his lyricism. In the 80s, Artist magazine dubbed him as one of the foremost songwriters in rock and roll. And yet, as figurative as he was, he never got overly political, except for one song. President Gas from the band's Forever Now LP was a cynical attack on the president at the time, Ronald Reagan. Richard sang the lyrics, "President Gas is President Gas again. He comes in from the left sometimes. He comes in from the right. It's so heavily advertised that he wants you and I." Interestingly enough, Richard never wanted to stray too far into making any political statements. In fact, as he told Artist magazine, he prefers to remain silent. "I think that when people come shouting slogans, it really doesn't help you understand. It doesn't help you come to terms with yourself." The 80s saw the birth of MTV, a revolutionary time for the music industry. On August 1st, 1981, the iconic channel launched its first music video, Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles. Not only did MTV change the future of music at the time, they made a significant impact on new wave music. According to Simon Reynolds' book Rip It Up and Start Again, new wave and post-punk music weren't as popular in mainstream America due to conservative radio programming. MTV changed all that. In fact, Rock Seller magazine dubbed the Furs the gods of the MTV era. Tim Butler recalled to Classic Pop, "When MTV pretty much took over was when Love My Way came on heavy rotation. Your music gets to more people quicker." So what was it like for the Psychedelic Furs churning out videos for MTV? According to Richard, their experience with the channel at the time was a love-hate relationship, noting that although he found it fun to make the visuals, he felt it wasn't exactly fair, since groups were essentially giving away free content.
All the cliches about it, I don't know, I'm not so keen on that.
Richard explained to Rock Seller magazine that it was risky for some bands to pay up to $100,000 for a video, only to have MTV choose a bad slot for it. It could sometimes play early morning when few people were watching. He said, "There wasn't any guarantee that they would play it. I thought it was a bit of a ripoff, really, I suppose." Looking at modern-day U2, one might not categorize them in the same genre as the Psychedelic Furs, what with their massive stadium sound and commercialization. However, once upon a time, U2 and the Furs were two bands that actually had a lot in common. U2 and the Psychedelic Furs came by way of the same post-punk movement in the early 1980s. In fact, U2's most iconic album, The Joshua Tree, was co-produced by Brian Eno, a legend in the post-punk genre, and the similarities don't end there. Steve Lillywhite was the mastermind producer behind both bands' debut albums, U2's Boy and the Psychedelic Furs' eponymous record, both of which were released in 1980. From there, Lillywhite also produced both of their second albums the following year. Many predicted that both of the bands would reach global mainstream success, and the race was on. However, things didn't go as planned due to a 1981 live performance by both groups on the German TV show Rockpalast. As Richard Butler told The Independent, U2 did a great performance and went on to rule the world, and we were falling apart, did a bad performance, and didn't go on to rule the world. While the Psychedelic Furs didn't break into such lasting mainstream success as U2, it doesn't mean that the iconic 80s band doesn't have a global following. In fact, some of their most loyal fans are modern-day musical A-listers. During an interview with NME, Tim Butler revealed that the Killers were influenced by the Furs, adding that both bands are actually friends who have even gone on tour together not once, but twice. Tim said, "Every time we're touring in America and playing near their home base, Brandon and Ronnie will come down." Brandon Flowers appears to be a mega fan of the Furs as well. He had Richard Butler appear in the music video for the single Can't Deny My Love for his solo project The Desired Effect. And while having the Killers as their fans seems to make musical sense, Tim noted that a much more unexpected person to complement the Furs' music was Joe Elliott from Def Leppard. The Furs' love doesn't end there. Musicians have recorded covers of their songs, such as the Foo Fighters' version of Sister Europe and Korn's much more metal take on Love My Way. Tim told NME he found it, quote, "weird and flattering." Regardless of the fresh takes on their classics, the lads welcome it all, as they say it only increases their fan base. While the Psychedelic Furs definitely became staples of the new wave genre in the 80s, one can't help but wonder whether they would have achieved even greater success if they had collaborated with even bigger names of the decade. As a matter of fact, they almost did. During a 2020 chat with NME, Tim Butler revealed that he attended an after-party for a David Bowie and Iggy Pop concert sometime in the late 1980s. In a risky move, he said, "I walked up to Bowie, took the drink out of his hand, took a swig of it and said, 'You can't f***ing act, can you?' He said, 'Well, I didn't ask your advice.' And I said, 'I didn't give you any.'" The musician told the mag that he was drunk at the time, and Butler stated that remarkably, Bowie didn't seem bothered and even came to see the Furs live in concert multiple times after the encounter. Tim clearly must have made an impression, since after seeing the Psychedelic Furs live, Bowie, along with fellow 80s idol David Byrne, came into the band's dressing room one night. As Tim told Huck Mag, his two heroes were discussing the next Furs album and arguing about wanting to produce it. While the collaborations never happened, the Psychedelic Furs did end up touring with Talking Heads, and as Tim mused to the outlet, it might have been fun to work with David Bowie. It's been 4 decades since the heyday of the Psychedelic Furs, but they have a surge of new fans eagerly streaming their music. As Tim Butler told NME, now our audience ranges from 16 to 60. How exactly did the unexpected spike in popularity happen? It helps that the band's music has been featured in 2 high-profile on-screen moments. The first, Season 2 of Stranger Things, featured the Furs' 1984 song The Ghost in You. Tim told USA Today that he already watched the hit 80s-based show, so he experienced the moment in real time himself. But the band's even more high-profile appearance happened when Love My Way was featured in 2017's Oscar-winning film Call Me By Your Name. Tim decided to see it and told USA Today that he was surprised by how many times the song was featured. In one scene, they even referenced the Furs. Tim said, "They're talking about the band and someone says, 'Yeah, we went to England to see them last year. Richard Butler's great.'" The band seems thrilled that their music is receiving this kind of representation. After their Pretty in Pink experience, Richard explained to Tidal that the usage of Love My Way and Call Me By Your Name felt like things were somewhat balanced in that regard. Many musicians of the 80s boldly sought out to tell stories through their lyrics, but while Richard Butler has been praised for his own lyricism, he's quick to brush off the compliment. In 2010, the singer told The Quietus, "I'm really lazy with lyrics. I've always been a really bad procrastinator in everything." He noted that the pressure he felt to get a song done actually worked in the band's favor. However, Butler doesn't put himself in the same category as his contemporaries. Using Morrissey of the Smiths and Echo and the Bunnymen as examples, the musician explains that he feels they are making, quote, "poetry sort of noisy." He told Artist Magazine, "They claim to be influenced by Rimbaud and Mallarmé and Baudelaire, and I think they're just hooking up the words and making it look like poetry." In 2020, the Psychedelic Furs delivered a new album titled Made of Rain, followed by a 2021 single Evergreen. These were the first releases since their 1991 album World Outside. Tim Butler told Forbes, "We still were nervous when we went into recording, a bit nervous about how the general public or fans would take it. Sure enough, the public was pleased. Even the notoriously critical Pitchfork gave the album a solid 7 rating, noting that it's, quote, refreshingly free of nostalgic gestures. The lineup has changed a lot in the decades that have passed. Tim and his brother Richard are the only 2 original members, adding saxophonist Mars Williams and drummer Paul Garisto, who were present in the lineup in the 80s. They have also welcomed guitarist Rich Good and keyboardist Amanda Kramer. The band has said that they are very proud of their new work and think it is up there with their best.
When we came off, we had, the urge to go pretty much straight back in and start writing the songs.